Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Security Pulse. Mobile security, especially in roaming in today's age. And just roaming to start off, we have seen roaming evolve.
Do you know, guys, how many people are using mobile phones as personal identifiers? It's around 70% of the global population. Can I trust that the person using the phone is who they claim to be? Is it the right person? Can I trust my mobile operator with all sensitive data I keep on my device? Bank saw it like it was masking. At the end of the story, he lost almost $1 million.
Oh my God.
Appreciate it a lot. Hopefully that it was something new for you. All feedbacks are very welcome. Please send us questions, reach out to us, and let's keep maintaining this topic. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for the delay earlier. We had some technical difficulties, but we are back. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Security Pulse. Here we at Security Pulse, we invite leaders. We talk about different pressing topics. We offer solutions. So today I'm honored to have with us Miss Natalia Dulenkova. She's the head of mobile roaming with Deutsche Telekom career. And she's spearheading the roaming solutions, also providing security recommendations to the global mobile carriers, as well as she has been recognized in different platforms. So it's been my honor to have Miss Natalia with us. Welcome, Natalia. Welcome, Natalia, to the show. It's been an honor for us.
Hello, everyone. Many thanks, Taha, for the introduction. So you know now my name. I'm Natalia Dulenkova. I am working at Deutsche Telekom Global Carrier. So it's a carrier part of the group. And indeed, as Taha said, I am responsible for roaming enablement and security solutions. We provide connectivity services. We provide security services as well. And we do some as well security concept. I guess that's what we will discuss today. Back to you, Taha.
True. Yeah. So I think before we go into the questions, mobile security, especially in roaming, has been the pressing topic, in today's age. And just roaming to start off, we have seen roaming evolve from 2G space to the 3G, 4G, and now 5G, and it's been quite a journey, and more so now that we are now in the 5G era. We have seen operators using private 5G solutions, and roaming has always been a talking point. So to navigate all this, we'll be going through different questions. We'll have some discussion. So I'm sure that you'll love the discussion. And if you have any questions around the topics and around the discussion point, you can feel free to put it on the chat, and we'll be taking it in the end. So to start off, Natalia, in your view, if you talk about roaming, what are the security risks associated with roaming when it comes to the mobile operators like using roaming? And if you can just brief us through some of the risks starting from the 2G and explaining just to our audience the basic concept of roaming, first of all, that what it means to roam between different carriers, and what are the different risks that are involved in this.
Before, I like how you started the conversation, because it really allows us to go from the very beginning to the evaluation of different technologies and protocols. But before we dive deep, just a very small question to our audience. But it's interesting. So do you know, guys, how many people are using mobile phones as personal identifiers? Probably some of you heard about it because it's a very known data, but if not, it's around 70% of the global population. Just think about it, it's a huge amount of people. And this fact put us in face of two major questions. First is, when you are looking on this from the point of view of someone who is interacting with a person identified by GSM, can I trust that the person using the phone is who they claim to be? Is it the right person? Is it the real one? And second question is more for yourself. If you are using your GSM as identifier, as the person using the phone, can I trust my device? Can I trust my mobile operator and my IPX provider, so IPX provider of my operator behind, with all sensitive data I keep on my device? So I guess that this very simple and illustrative explanation gives you understanding why security is so crucial in roaming. Now we are all talking about digitalization. It's from every corner. And it's true because everything is connected to everything. So it's very digitalized. And sometimes your phone knows more about you than your partner. So that is your bank information, I don't know, some passwords, whatever. So those questions are really fundamental, and security is very important because with a breach of security, what are you losing? You can lose much more than just, it's not the phone, it's all your life is in this phone. And from this point of view, of course, we as subscribers, we depend on our mobile operators, and in their turn, mobile operators depend a lot on their IPX providers because that's part of the traffic. And maybe from here, we can start talking about precisely your question, Taha, about why security in roaming is important and how it was developing. So, starting from the very beginning, we all are using very, very old technology, which is SS7 signaling, and which was launched almost 40 years ago. So at this time, it was done for all mobile operators to be interconnected, to be registered in the network, of course, to carry as well voice and messaging. But the main purpose was to keep people able to roam and as well to track them to be able to send SMS. Just as an example, not only, of course, but just as an example. Nobody thought at those times about security, it was out of scope. And we are still using SS7 signaling. Almost all operators in the world, even with the sunset, still for messaging, except a few countries, it's very much used. Imagine in this interconnected world how many signaling, SS7 signaling connections exist in the whole world. It's incredible. And as we said, as such, as technology, SS7 is super weak. It's the most vulnerable technology, and majority of fraud is coming specifically from SS7. And as I said, messaging is going via SS7, and messaging is one of main sources. I mean, not messaging as such, but the way how you send a message gives you opportunity to track, to trace, to do all bad things you can imagine. So that is a kind of a paradigm of today's security, that being so advanced and talking about 5G and even about 6G in some part of the world, we are still using SS7, which is so old and which is so vulnerable. Then another technology which is used as well a lot is 4G, LT, and 5G non-standalone, which is a mixture of 5G radio and 4G core network. So that was done as an improvement, right? And then you have less SS7 signaling, you have more diameter, but diameter is not that secured either. It was developed 15 years ago almost, and it's not ideal. So all technologies we are using today, they are not really secured. Only one per design secured technology is 5G standalone roaming, which is not yet ready for production. It's ready for test, but there is no one who would use it for roaming. I'm not talking about national usage, I'm talking only about roaming. So all other technologies are super vulnerable, while more and more data, more and more information, personal data is going to mobile networks. So that put us in a situation that we have to be very, very careful with how we treat our networks. And this message goes not only to mobile operators, because of course it's a responsibility of mobile operator to have the right protection, first of all, firewalls and security monitoring, but it goes as well to IPX provider, because even if you have a very good protection locally, you still accept traffic from IPX provider, and then it goes some risks as well. So maybe Maybe here I would like to share a new concept we launched at Deutsche Telekom to be safer for our customers. It's called Magenta Security Roaming. And the idea is not only to offer connectivity services and not only firewalls, but to improve ourselves, to change our own approach towards what we can do. So, for this reason, we, for example, at SS7 level, we limited our network as of April of this year, so it's very, very new, it's recent. We limited our signaling network to operators only. We disconnected all SMS aggregators, and we are not allowing any non-operator players to connect our network, making sure that we cannot control how is configured signaling firewall of our customer. We cannot force them to buy it if they don't have, but at least we can offer them secure connectivity with us. Speaking about diameter, what we did, we are allowing only vetted M2M traffic, which means that we are very careful with all what is least GT. That is a specific discussion within our company. But M2M is coming usually from MVNOs. MVNOs are usually using lead GT, so we are checking each GT from where it comes, for which reason, and then we are checking as well where traffic will be sent, if it's covered by roaming agreement or not, and only after that we are allowing traffic after consent of our customer operator. So those are things we are doing as a PIX provider to improve this ecosystem. But I have to admit that it's a beginning of the work. We started only recently. We are not yet supported by industry because cutting aggregators from your signaling network, you actually cut your margin. So it's not followed by, by anyone so far.
Yeah.
But we are trying to promote it as much as possible as an approach.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, then, I mean, I really like how you are compromising or not compromising, how you are
Not
offloading some
compromise.
of the signaling. Yeah, how you are, limiting the signaling traffic that can come to you, and only the whitelisted GTs or somebody who is sending the legitimate traffic would comes to you. Like that is really, really important. So, taking a step forward now, if you look at the 5G landscape, we have IoT devices connected to the 5G network. We have 5G to like evolve as a network as with services like network slicing coming in. So is there any risk related to the 5G network that you think that operators should like prioritize more over others?
Generally, 5G as such is a very fascinating topic.
Mhm.
But I would like to touch a little bit different aspect before answering your question, because we have to understand very well what we are talking about. In many reports now, we see that we are living in 5G era, and indeed there is a lot of discussions around. But let's be honest, whom is really 5G enabled, and what do we understand under this 5G enablement? We have national 5G, which is indeed live in many countries. But national landscape is always different from international. And me, for instance, I won't touch this topic much because from what I see and from what is our area of responsibility, it's always roaming. So it's irrelevant to roaming because it's not coming to this part. You have 5G non-standalone, which is true. It's very much popular. But as we just said, it's a transition between real 5G standalone and 4G, because 5G non-standalone is a combination. It's 5G radio, but core network is still from 4G. That's why all
Mhm.
vulnerabilities of 4G are present in 5G non-standalone. It's completely the same. And the main vulnerability, the weak point, is a man in the middle attack. So that is a pain point of 4G, 5G, NSA. Speaking about 5G standalone roaming, indeed, it's secured by design. To launch a service, I'm not talking about readiness because we just said there is not much operators in the world. I think that the number is about 18, which are ready for POCs. And we, by the way, we were very, very lucky because we at Deutsche Telekom, we have own network in the United States, T-Mobile, and T-Mobile was one of the first 5G enabled. And we were doing everything to launch the network abroad, so roaming part. And that's why I'm saying we are very lucky. That's how we learned together about all aspects, all things which were not known, because it was a really very beginning of the road trip. So that is interesting, but there is not much roaming partners who would be ready to launch this commercially. It's very limited
True.
amount of operators in the world, and that's why it's difficult today to talk about high risks, because we don't know yet. Market haven't seen it yet. Nobody faced it. What we know that this essential component of 5G, which is called SEP, it's needed for you to launch the service. It's not allowed to launch 5G SA without SEP. So SEP can be
Mhm.
your own, it can be hosted, it can be outsourced. We offer all those options, and SEP is responsible for inbuilt integrity, authentication, and encryption. But SEP is not equal to firewall. Speaking about SEP, that is another message I wanted to share as well. It's very important to not see generally 5G standalone roaming as all previous technologies, because it's a completely different thing. I mean, clearing is replaced by BCE, network looks differently, everything is not the same, but the cornerstone is end-to-end security. And for this, to keep this end-to-end security, you need to enable security for SEP, so you cannot connect everyone via hub. It is easier technically if you own the hub. Of course, it's easier to add one more layer on top, but then it kills the whole idea of end-to-end security. And for us, for Deutsche Telekom, it was quite a long discussion with 3GPP and GSMA. We um, convinced the 3GPP that the best way of doing things is to avoid SEP chaining, so do not see it as hubbing model. And now, I believe it was in early November or late October, so it's very, very recent. 3GPP said that the only way of providing 5G signaling is no SEP chaining, because otherwise it's not secure, and if it's not secure, it's not 5G, so it's contradicting the whole idea. GSMA is still working on this idea, and the market as well. I would say that different providers see it differently, because sometimes, as I said, it's easier to upgrade up to 5G, but from the other hand, it kills somehow the security. But that is a little bit theoretical discussion. Today, we have no crystal ball to see in the future what at the end will be present at the market and which new threats will happen. What we know today that we don't expect much traffic overleaking to 5G. We believe that 5G SA will coexist with 4G for quite long time, like 10, 15 years, because 4G
Got it.
is very convenient for human traffic, while 5G SA is built for new use cases, but it's purely machine to machine and very specific cases. So we believe it will coexist, and we believe as well that since 5G is so secure, amount of fraud in previous technologies will grow. It won't reduce, but it will grow, because fraudsters are used to get money. And if 5G is cutting them, then they will attack more all previous technologies, thinking that the market is more focused on launching new technology and having not enough attention to previous ones. So that is a little bit the expectation. But
Got it. Got it.
again, else. By the way, Taha, you are working a lot with 5G, and what is your feeling on that? How do you?
Yeah, I have. I'll share my experience, to you all. So recently, I got the chance to work on a 5G roaming project in which I wanted to, do the security design of that roaming component. So, like, first off, what 5G roaming deployments, what I see here in the US, it's mostly they are using a public cloud network to host their network. For example, the control when you mentioned about SEP. So the SEP application has been deployed, for example, on the AWS infrastructure. Now there are two main risk what I see, or what the operators are mainly concerned of. Like, I mean, first off, they would like to know what are the inherent vulnerabilities that the application is inheriting from the infrastructure. For example, if there is any vulnerability on a platform layer, which is, for example, if you're using AWS, so there are some vulnerabilities which you inherit from the EKS part, right? So how that EKS vulnerability, for example, I would like to mention one of them, which is IMDS version 2. That is a common vulnerability which is inherited on the AWS platform. So the operators are mainly concerned that if in the IMDS vulnerability, if we can get the metadata, from the SEP applications, then how would operators react to that request coming into the SEP platform? Okay. The second risk is, if, for example, if there is a roaming agreement, for example, if there is a T-Mobile is roaming with Dish, for example, right? So if the any of the NFs is compromised on Dish, and if it's sending, let's say, a deregister message, towards the home, from the visitor NRF towards the home NRF, for example, deregistering like an NF, like an SMF. Okay, so how would operators prevent such messages which is coming in from SEP and bypassing, for example, the prints, or any of the, like the filtering functionality which the SEP is having? So how the operators would react to those messages? So it's mainly on the privacy compliance part that the operators are worried on for any messages coming in from the roaming partners. But essentially,
But sorry,
it comes down to, yeah.
your example is very interesting one, but based on national roaming.
Yeah,
Without
exactly. So just
release
to,
to
just to clear
operators.
this part, yeah, it's national roaming. We're not talking about international roaming here. And there is another part which you mentioned, Natalia, which is very interesting for me, is you mentioned about SEP chaining. So when you talk about SEP chaining, it's about connecting different SEPs through IPX, and then IPX is taking the traffic towards the end part. Is that what you meant by the SEP chaining, well, Natalia?
Yes, actually, what I mean is that if you are not having your own SEP as operator, because if
Mhm.
you mobile operator has your own SEP, and then you can build directs with everyone, that is definitely very secure. But if you are using hosted SEP, or you give your SEP to be outsourced, then it's a little bit different story. It's very interesting because hosted SEP, when it operated by one IPX provider, then you as customer of this IPX provider, you know the conditions, you have the trust. So you need to make sure that this SEP is available only for other operators. By the way, that is very similar with what we did with our SS7 network. So operators only, no other players. In our case for SEP, we are allowing other mobile operators, but we are not allowing other IPX providers because they have their own connections. Then it's very difficult to control. As I said, SEP is not equal to firewall. But at the same time, if operators are willing to build direct SEP, we are not forcing anyone. We are just willing to have a really secured, transparent solution. So that is our visibility
Got it.
of
Got it.
this topic.
Got it. One more approach that I have seen here operators are taking is to have a layered approach for security, meaning that if they want to, for example, secure that, like international roaming or the national roaming, like whatever is the use case, they would take the layered approach. Layered approach means, like, first off, they would include the security audits in the design process. So practices like threat modeling would help them in order to identify and to quantify the threats which are relevant to their architecture. Then they would also check what are the 3GPP, for example, if you are using 3GPP release 17, release 18, whatever the version they are using, what are the security features which are coming up with those 3GPP standards. But like second is, as you are quantifying and making sure that you are following the 3GPP security best practices in your architecture, then you would start off with what really matters to you as an operator. Some would prefer to make it to be more privacy compliant, like solution. For example, they should not get any like confidentiality and integrity attacks. They should be more sort of having direct and compensating controls in the shape of making sure that strict access controls are there. Whatever is being passed through the firewalls is been also like protected through some other defense mechanism, like like anomaly detection or runtime protection measure. So it really comes down to the layered approach, as well as you have to, as you go about, because see, we have to also be mindful that we have to make sure that we are getting the desired performance, like desired latency, like statistics to what we are doing. So as you are making your like decisions, like design decisions, and making like or applying security controls, make sure you are taking an iterative approach in which you are quantifying the results, making sure that you're getting the ROI, and then taking it to the next iteration and doing what you need to do in terms of your security posture. Okay, moving on, Natalia. Yeah, do you want to add on something before I go to the next part?
No, I just wanted to say that I fully agree with you on this approach. That is our recommendation as well, because as there is a very known expression in security: if you are not monitored, you are monitored. So it's up to us
Yeah,
as well to make sure that everything works. What we
yeah,
always recommend is not only to have a firewall, which is always important, but it's always very good for operator. Speaking now about generic suggestions, to have network vulnerability audit done by a third party, by a neutral party, having enough resources for that, especially to control things like signaling SS7, because that's something which can bring you some surprises. Security monitoring on top is as well very, very important. It's something which can make your life much easier. There is another tool which is not yet known much by the market, but we are trying to promote it as well. It's called DES, Diameter End-to-End Security Solution Phase 1. Here I have to highlight this phase 1 because so it is for diameter, that is clear. The tool is actually it represent the way how two operators can exchange with security keys while they are connected via LTE. Because as we discussed, LTE is not that much secure. It's open for man-in-the-middle attack, and firewall is not protecting you from man-in-the-middle attack. So this exchange of security keys can at least show you that message you are receiving is coming from the right network. What is difficult yet is that this tool is still under discussion by the industry, so it's not yet popular. I don't know yet cases of a real commercial launch because you need to be enabled. And again, because of end-to-end security, you cannot, as provider, you cannot enable keys for two customers. So one customer has to have own DES, and other customer can do it via IPX provider or have its own. So it's not something you can facilitate easily. It helps you to have this. If you want, it's half of a SEP function. So it's inbuilt integrity. It's authentication, but there is no encryption yet. Encryption, it will be DES phase 2, which is not yet confirmed case, because if it's confirmed, actually it looks like SEP, so it's very, very similar. But it's interesting to know that at least we, as an industry, we are thinking in this direction. So it shows that it attracts enough attention, and people are trying to protect networks more and more.
The role of IPX provider, so we have two operators. For example, operator A wants to connect to an operator B internationally. Okay, this is the use case. Now, one question is that how IPX provider can enable the end-to-end security for both the operators. That is one. And secondly, is there any like go-to approach that the operators should take in order to have the IPX provider help them in order to do this? And in terms of readiness, what do you need from the operator to make this all smooth?
Good question. I don't want to repeat myself much about what we are doing at Deutsche Telekom, but because it is something I can comment easily, I don't know about what others are having as plan. I guess that now industry is quite transparent from this point of view. So there are big players. Big players are trying to do their best in terms of different services. It's more about maybe regional presence and to see whom is connecting whom. What is very important for mobile operator is to know if their IPX provider is connecting mobile operators mainly, or there are different other type of players. So that's I said we cut it. Not everyone is doing the same, because then it's always a source of a potential fraud. But again, there are different cases. So I don't want to say that everything which is not operator is not legit. It depends. So you need to see case by case. But definitely IPX provider which is not using any tools to monitor is not present in, let's say, regulation discussion, industry discussion. It's quite tricky. Um, what is as well interesting, and here IPX providers, I believe, are playing a role, at least we are spending quite a lot of time, that lately with the growth of M2M traffic, there is a lot of discussions from regulation in different countries and in different regions. In Europe, for example, there is a new legislation which is called NIS 2. It's for not only it's for critical infrastructure, and for the first time, I guess that we are really approaching kind of a new era. For the first time, it's not only about telecommunications, but it's about the all critical infrastructure, about enterprises, about electricity, about gas, everything. So it's all together, but it protects you more. And role of IPX provider is, of course, to support such kind of discussions before it is framed into a document, into a guidelines, because based on how you support it, based on what you can do as part of this critical infrastructure, depends how secure will be mobile operator which is using your services, and consequently how secured will be subscriber, because at the end all goes to the subscriber security. uh, but I mean, it's a very broad topic. We can start from different angles. It will be always something
Mm-hmm.
to
True,
discuss.
true, true.
uh, how it's done in United States, by the way.
So, if you are talking about US, what they are mainly, they don't want to include any man in the middle. They would prefer to have it direct connectivity with the roaming partner, especially in the case of national roaming. They don't want any like IPX provider. The problem, what they see is that if you bring in, they just wanted to, for example, start with signaling. Let's make the signaling up. Let's start with the first call. Okay, then as they do the audits and as they find the vulnerabilities, then they would take that vulnerabilities, make it quantifiable, that hey, is it practical to secure this vulnerability, or can I just leave it? So they're taking more of a risk-based approach in trying to get this all architected in the solution. But yeah, I mean, the IPX role is also like always a crucial role in this whole like ecosystem. And it also depends on how much knowledge the operator has. For example, if it's been coming from the 3G 4G era, they know like what to do for the 5G and how to make sure that IPX is well placed in their ecosystem. So they would have like certain IPX provider which they have shortlisted, and they're just relying on those players to help them. But most operators who are, for example, a greenfield deployment, they are just making sure that they are being directly connected to that like roaming operator. Yeah. Uh, Now moving on, Natalia, if you look at how the roaming has evolved over the years, and especially with the new technologies coming in, like for example, like quantum computing coming in, there are new frameworks which are being proposed. For example, a zero trust framework by CISA, in which roaming part is there, right? So how do you see which technologies or frameworks would be influencing how roaming is managed over the next, let's say, 3-5 years down the time?
Well, everything is actually influencing roaming, so you cannot say that blockchain will influence more than AI. And to me, AI is maybe the most hot topic from what I see in the industry. It's very much discussed today because, from one hand, of course, it's a great support. You can have access to information faster. It can be completely different quality of work if you know how to handle it. From the other hand, of course, it's a threat, and that is something which was discussed as well a lot. Maybe just to make our discussion a little bit less technical, and because we are approaching now to the end of the session, to animate people a little bit, I can tell you a real story without names, but quite an interesting one, with participation, if I can say so, of AI. So it's about security, of course. It's about a guy who is very very rich, kind of a multimillionaire, and he is working with some IT technologists. So I'm a little bit careful with what I'm saying to not be too much obvious. So the guy knows very well IT, not telcos, but agrees that it's quite close, and that's why guy was not willing to have with his bank SMS verification. He had an agreement that if ever he wants to take out a big amount of money, I don't know, more than something, bank has to call him. He has to call back from his number, and they will
Mhm.
ask the keyword. And when he was traveling, by the way, it happened only 1 year ago, maybe something like that. So it's again, it's quite a recent story.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was traveling somewhere abroad, and he saw that he has a very big amount of money going out from his account, so just disappeared. Nobody knew how. He called the bank to check, and bank said, "But no, you called from your own number, and you said the password." So what was the trick behind? It's a whole combination. Again, saying why security is so important. Um, Fraudsters recorded first his voice, and sentence they recorded was long enough to be able to reproduce the password, which they managed to find somehow with his voice. So it was the sentence was quite long to change to like to use his voice for the password. And then they did the phone call redirect, and that's why bank saw it like it was masking like his phone, which was not, of course, coming from him. So at the end of the story, he lost almost $1 million.
Oh my God.
Uh, Combination of social engineering, AI, and bypassing, and so it was
Yeah,
everything in this case. But bank was considered as a victim because bank lost money as well, and bank is not entitled even to do such kind of checks. They had the number from the right, they had the right call from the right number. They
mm,
heard
mm.
the voice. Okay, maybe they was not supposed to recognize the voice, but the password was right. And just in case for any, I don't know, um, checks, the voice was sounding like him. Guy was considered as a victim as well. That is as well clear. Nobody knew how to find those money. It just disappeared without any continuation of the story, from what I know. So it's very interesting how many things can happen and how AI can be used. So to me, AI it's a very interesting topic in the
Yeah,
context of
yeah.
learning and security, but not
Oh
only
my
in a
God.
negative way, of course, as said, but just saying that it's very diverse and it's interesting.
Nice, nice, nice. Very, very interesting, Natalia. And it sounds scary, and it is something which as an industry we have to come up with some solutions to counter such attacks, and such threats. So just on a closing note, Natalia, in your experience, in your view, working with different companies, standard organizations, been a part of this industry for several years, is there anything like the standards body like GSMA or 3GPP can do little bit different than what they are doing right now to help roaming be secure?
I believe that we all as an industry are putting a lot of efforts. For example, GSMA is very proactive in fraud and security group. and some subgroups like subgroup dealing with this, with 5G, with, I mean, it's a lot of creating of new trust, because in the very beginning of the telco, when we were talking about SS7, how it appeared, it was done just to make sure that people can roam, that they can register in the network, that they can get SMS and perform voice calls, and everyone liked each other because fraud was not yet rising. Nobody knew that it's another way of getting money. Money is always behind, right?
Yeah,
So then fraud started growing, and now it reached certain level of creativity and professionalism that we can say that fraud is very much industrialized. Fraudsters are very competent people, quite often even more competent than people working with industry. So they're a little bit a step ahead because they had time to learn, you know.
yeah,
SS7
yeah,
signaling, which is 40 years old, they had time to learn where are the vulnerabilities, especially that it's not secured. Diameter, 15 years, it's more than enough for a professional. So that's why 5G SA was introduced as a secured by design to stop this situation, but now we see that it takes time to enable it properly. And what is done by the industry is tentative, actually not a tentative. Tentative is something you maybe fail, but it's just we are all consolidating the efforts to rebuild this trust. And for 5G, for example, on top of SEP, you have the whole set of different rules. Certification, that is a very good example. Exchange of
yeah,
security
yeah,
keys and certification, which serve to check whom is connected with whom, sending traffic to whom, and then it built trust because there is no way to bypass, there is no way to be in the middle. Those are new procedures, and it will, of course, add a lot of complexity. So it's not getting be easier; it's getting to be much more complex. And same people will be busy with 5G, which are maintaining now 4G. So it will
yeah,
be
yeah,
teams overloaded, new knowledges, everything new. But the target is very, very good to make industry believe each other again, to make us more transparent. So I think it's a very
yeah,
good trend,
yeah.
but
I
requiring
think just to
definitely,
add on, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Just to add on, Natalia, what you are saying is we see that the growth from the 3G to 4G, people understanding, like the hacker community, learning about how to exploit these vulnerabilities took time before, but now with the use of Gen AI, with ChatGPT, a lot of like learning models, you can be more up to speed to what you need to do, right? So it's also a challenge for the operators, and the only way I would say would help the industry to grow if we can have a collaborative approach between operators, vendors, IPX providers, and the standard organizations
definitely.
to build up something like a framework to guide operators to architect the 5G solutions, especially the roaming solutions. Yeah. Uh, Thank you, Natalia. It's been a pleasure. Now I'll open the floor for some questions from our audience. I see there are a few of them, so I just want to take two of them, to you. Rashid Anwar says, how does quantum computing challenge the current cryptographic systems used in 5G, especially IoT devices and edge networks?
Very good question. I will take it and I can come back to you because I need to talk to a colleague of mine who is responsible precisely with 5G. 5G is a
Okay.
very specific topic. You need to be a deep expert, and I don't want to mislead you now because it's very, very special thing.
Yeah, yeah. Rashid, I would add this is see, quantum computing is not only challenging the 5G landscape, it is challenging the overall industry, Now, how much resilient we are, it depends on, whether the operators want to use their own security team in order to come up with some security measures, or they want to rely on the 3GPP standards to help them, help them secure the cryptographic like systems. But see, like cryptography is one domain. I would say, it does pose the challenge, but it's not just the quantum computing. It's a lot of other things as well. So in order to hit the quantum computing, you have to first evaluate where this quantum computing risk comes in your architecture, and then take it a iterative approach in trying to solve that, what compensating controls you can add up to secure that part. Okay, you cannot maybe redo the algorithm, which is, for example, providing you the ciphering or integrity checks of your authentication procedure, right? So that has to come from 3GPP standards. But in order for your architecture, in which wherever you're using cryptography, try to use compensating controls, use best PKI practices that would like help you in order to enhance your architecture. Yeah. Then there is a question from Hari Hatula. Will you tell also about VoLTE and voice over NR roaming? You want to take this, Natalia?
Yes. We didn't discuss it today. I don't know why, because we had such an interesting discussion and it was so many things to share.
Yeah.
But indeed, it's as well. It's a big topic, because for voice over LTE, you have new type of fraud actually. So that is something which is um, from maybe last year or so. Now you have the growth of the data due to the migration to voice over LTE from traditional voice, and of course, all what is growing always attracting fraudsters, because that shows that there is more potential and more things to be bypassed, or to do some, let's say, unauthorized call forwarding. Um, so that is growing, unfortunately, as well. It's voice over LTE fraud and voice over Wi-Fi fraud as well. So it's in the same category. But yeah, it's unfortunately it's a big problem.
Yeah. So, Hari, I would just add on to what Natalia has said. So, it is indeed an interesting topic. There's a lot of documents and research paper that has already been done, and we will maybe cover that in a separate topic, because this it needs a more than a 1 hour discussion. So we'll try to see how we can cover this topic in some of the next podcast video, and we'll keep you posted for that. Uh, all right, guys. I think we are good on on our time. I mean, it's been a wonderful discussion, Natalia, and your insights have been really impressive, and the experience that you have shared with our audience is like really fascinating. So, guys, if you want to know more about like 5G roaming, how the IPX is evolving, how you can take the opportunity to design like good systems, like reach out to Natalia and like the Deutsche Telekom career. They are like true like the pioneers of these, and the leaders in this space. And yeah, and keep following us. We'll be posting this video out soon. And thank you for all joining. Natalia, you want to just have any your final thoughts before we end?
I wanted to thank you, Taha, for the great discussion. It was very interesting and useful. Thank you for your highlights. And thank you for our audience for staying with us. So I appreciate it a lot. Hopefully that it was something new for you. If not, all feedbacks are very welcome. Please send us questions, reach out to us, and let's uh, let's keep maintaining this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So this is Taha Sajid signing off. I hope you have a wonderful day and take care of yourself. Thank you. Goodbye.
Have a good day, everyone. Bye bye.